Hello, I'm Joel Fadley. I'm going to be your instructor for Accounting 3020, Financial Accounting 2, otherwise known as Intermediate Accounting 2. And I'm going to just point out a few things here in the welcome video for this class that you're going to be taking over the next few weeks. Let me share the syllabus screen here. Actually, the D2L screen here I'll show first. I've got a little bit of background information here about myself. I'm originally from Bristol, Tennessee. Like you, I went to ETSU, received my undergraduate degree and a double major in computer science and accounting. Went to work at Nuclear Fuel Services in IT originally as a programmer analyst before moving over into the accounting function where I became the corporate finance manager. I earned my MBA at ETSU going to night school. Took about 4 years back in the 80s, and also earned my CMA designation probably about 8 or 9 years after I graduated from with my undergrad when I was about 30 or 31 years old. After NFS, I went to ACCT Technologies in Bristol, a battery manufacturer, where I was the plant controller there for going on 20 years. And after that, began teaching here full-time in 2014. I taught adjunct for a number of years when I was at Nuclear Fuel as well as at Exide at Northeast State, Milligan, and primarily here at ETSU. And I always knew I wanted to teach, and so here I am. I earned my doctorate after I started here back in 2014. I earned my doctorate in 2018 and enjoy teaching, especially here at ETSU with my fellow, what you will be, future alumni. So let's look at the syllabus here under the content section of D2L. Most of you probably know how to navigate through D2L, but some of you may not. You may not use D2L in some of your courses. Obviously, it's critical for an online course like this, asynchronous online, meaning you can learn at your speed. There's no set times that you have to get onto a WebEx or a Zoom real-time call. It's all out here recorded for you to read and study on your own. Except for the exams. The exams will be at a certain time, and these exams will be given online through My Accounting Lab. But you can do that from either where you're working or from your home or wherever that might be. So the content section here, I've got split up into 4 modules. If you look over here on the left-hand side, the table of contents, excuse me, you see foundation materials, which will have the syllabus and some other information, how to log into My Accounting Lab in Pearson. And then you'll see there's 4 modules here, 4 learning modules, and there will be an exam at the end of each one at a designated time, which you will be expected to actually log in and take those exams during that very tight window, which may not be but an hour and 15 minutes. All right, so here at the beginning, foundation materials, and that's me helping you up the mountain here of accounting. There's a couple of things I want you to look at. The first one is T accounts. The second one is accounting principles. These are very important PDFs that I've got out there, but before we get to that, let's look at the syllabus. I'm going to click on the syllabus here, open it up, and I'm not going to go through this in its entirety. You can read this on your own. My office is in room 220, Sam Wilson Hall. I'm there most days, but you might want to email me for an appointment just to make sure I'm there when you are able. We are going to study intermediate level accounting, financial accounting, theory and practice for really a wide range of items: plan assets, investments, revenue recognition, financial instruments, income taxes, liabilities, stockholders' equity, diluted earnings per share and earnings per share as well. And anytime you have a change in policy estimates and errors, what do you do about that? And cash flow statements. So it's there's really a lot in this chapter or in this this particular course. You'll find 3020 is quite a bit more challenging than 3010 is. The objectives for the course there, I've also got the objectives listed there in the news section of D2L. I would encourage you to log into D2L on a regular basis to find out what's been posted. I will email as well, but make sure you log in on a daily basis and check D2L for news. You should be doing that anyway as you go through these assignments and watch the videos, because the links are here. Go out and watch the lecture as well as the homework videos. Course objectives are listed there. Excel is very important to use in this class, and you will find me tying in real-world examples to the theory, something I'm uniquely qualified to do after having worked 33 years in public, private, nonprofits, governmental entities. And you also we have 3 Excel assignments. You will also be required to articulate the 5 key principles that I will talk about here shortly, and putting that into a gap paper that should be about 1,600 words. There's my background again. Prerequisites: you should have passed 3010 with a C or better, or you shouldn't be taking this class. The required text, the text isn't necessarily required. It's a reference manual. I would encourage you to buy that. What you do need is the My Accounting Lab access code, which I have a PDF there with a number for you to sign in, just like you did for 3010. That code is valid, I believe, for 2 years. So whatever you use for 3010, you can use for 3020 and logging in. But you need to work these you need to work these My Accounting Lab exercises, because the exam will be very similar to those. So that's very important. Mandatory that you have the access code for that, because otherwise you can't access the exams or the tests that I will put out there. Each of you have an email account that you'll keep forever. Make sure you read your email on a regular basis. Make sure you know how to use D2L. Class attendance, this is online asynchronous, so there's really no attendance policy like I would normally have, where I check attendance every day or each class period. The grading is 4 exams, 20% each. The Excel vacation accrual assignment will be 5%. There's an HR database assignment for 5%. The OPEB, other post-employment benefit case, is 5%, and the gap paper is 5%. There is no points rewarded for or awarded for homework. You need to do the homework in order to do the exams. If you don't do the homework, you're probably not going to do very well on the exams. So these 3 Excel assignments and the gap paper are meant for to enhance your learning skills, how to function in business with using Excel, which most companies require that you have a high degree of proficiency in, and also be able to articulate your thoughts. But each of those, there's really no reason why you should make 100 on those. And that in and of itself, those 4 assignments that are 5 points each really count as a test grade. So you need to do those. Some folks don't, and bear the brunt of that when they get to the end of the semester and find out, well, I could have passed the course had I done all those assignments, or I could have made an A had I done all 4 assignments. So they're there for your learning benefit. Grade distribution, A, B, C, D, and F. You can see the threshold there. The one you need to make sure you understand is C is a 72.5. We don't give C minuses, that you cannot move forward with the C minus. Missed exams, if you miss an online exam, if you give me a good excuse for that, and it'll have to be a written excuse, I will allow you to take a comprehensive final exam. Of course, I would encourage you not to have to take a final comprehensive exam. Just the nature of this course is difficult enough without trying to recall 11 to 12 chapters of information for a final. So make certain that you take each of these exams. I really don't have an issue with that. When I have a student that's away on ETSU business, like playing sports or so forth, they normally take the exam before, but this is primarily set up for summer, although it could be performed during the year as well. We'll have to wait and see this particular asynchronous course design. We'll work around that if you are an athlete and have to be away on school business playing a sport. All right, the assignments, again, there's the paper on gap. I'll talk more about that in the module where that's assigned. And each one of these 4 modules will have one of these assignments. Module 1 will have an Excel case, module 2 an Excel case, module 3 an Excel case, and then the final paper that's to be written will be module 4. Minimum 1,600 words. You'd have references there. Again, I don't need to read this to you, but make sure that you don't plagiarize, that you give credit when you paraphrase or direct quote something. Turnitin software is very good to catch folks who make mistakes or intentionally decide to use someone else's work for their own, which leads to the academic misconduct section that you can read on your own. And then here's the suggested schedule of study. This is what I put together for you to follow to make sure you're prepared on the date of the test, what you should do each of those days. So again, this is for the summer of 2020. And this would apply in future years as well in the summer and what you're looking at online. So, all right, so that's the syllabus. The other part of this I wanted to look at is under the background or foundation is the T accounts and accounting principles. So very briefly, this is what you should have learned back in 2010 or 2020. You can see up there at the top, this is something I've used in the last 6 years for 2020, which is what I teach on occasion, not much anymore, but this is how the income statement, the balance sheet really fit together. You need to know that the normal debit balance and normal credit balance for your accounts. Income statement, the normal balance for revenue is a credit. The normal balance for expenses have to be a debit. So if you've got more credit than debits, then you've got income, right? And the opposite is true. The only relationship between the income statement and the balance sheet is income summary, which gets closed out. Your revenues and expenses are closed out to income summary. Income summary is closed out to retained earnings. Income statement accounts are temporary, meaning they get zeroed out, right? End of the period, because they get closed out to income summary, and income summary gets closed out to retained earnings. Retained earnings is a balance sheet account that is kept forever, because balance sheet accounts are a point in time, unlike income statement is a period of time. At this point in time, we can see there that with our assets, liabilities, and equity, we all have a balance sheet that we carry with us forever, whether it's our personal balance sheet or the company that we work for. So assets have a normal debit balance, and from this middle school algebra, if you have a debit balance on the left-hand side in assets, then you have to have credit balances on the right-hand side in the liabilities and equity for the equation to balance, right? Debits must be equal to credits. Right? These are permanent accounts. It's for a point in time or a moment in time is what your balance sheet is. And again, the only relationship between the income statement and the balance sheet is retained earnings. All right, and then finally there, the statement of cash flows is what we'll have in the final chapter of this semester, which is really sort of a capstone chapter for intermediate, and how all our income statement, balance sheet stuff works together, and how we are able to show our cash flow statement really as cash basis accounting when we've been doing accrual basis accounting for the prior 21 chapters. So that's just a sort of a brief overview that sometimes you need to really, in your mind, keep straight what's going on with thinking about what kind of journal entries do I need to make and how does that impact my income statement or my balance sheet. Then the accounting principles here under this foundation materials section are 12 principles or concepts that are really important. I know you've already had this in 3010, maybe got talked about some in 2010 and 2020. But I just want to really solidify your knowledge here in understanding these 12 principles or 12 concepts. The last 5, which are on the second page here, is what you'll be writing a paper on here in the final days, final weeks of this class, the last module, where you're putting together this 5-page gap paper, where I want you to tell me what you understand about these 5 principles. Now, the first one there, number 8, is revenue recognition principle. And coincidentally, number 8 is from chapter 8 that you had in 3010. You need to talk about the revenue recognition principle, how important that is, because everything hinges on revenue recognition. When we recognize revenue, when it is earned, right, the accrual basis of accounting, when those performance obligations are met, title passes and so forth, you recognize that revenue. And then number 9 there, matching principle, which is really chapter 13, which we'll talk about here in the next few days. Matching principle, chapter 13, you're matching expenses with the revenues that have been recognized. And that's really 95% of what accounting is, matching expenses with the revenue that you recognize. The accrual basis of accounting, not when it's paid, when it's actually been incurred as far as an expense. And on the other side, revenue when you've actually earned that revenue. So talk about the matching principle. Materiality, what is material? I'll talk a lot about that this semester, each of these principles, and what that means for you in making a decision. You flat don't have the time as an accountant in your career to cross all the T's and dot all the I's. Some people think you have the time to do that. You really don't. And materiality says, well, what level is material? When I was controller at Exide, we had 2 days to close the books. When I was at Lear, we had 1 day, believe it or not. That was a long day. That was about a 15-hour day. So you just couldn't get everything accrued that you needed to, but you wanted to make sure you got the big ones. If you had any invoices under $500, you didn't worry about missing those. That's what we did at Exide. Granted, your enterprise resource software, like your SAP or Oracle or JD Edwards, they do a lot of that for you, but there's always things that you need to chase down, but you don't want to chase down $50, $100, $150 invoices. So if you've got, as an example, so if you've got, that's just one example of materiality. So we just need to make sure that you and I know what materiality is as we move out of this class and into advanced. What's conservatism? I mean, you want to make sure that you don't want to overstate anything like expenses, but you certainly don't want to understate them. And same with revenue. You want to guard against overstating revenue. You know, that's the #1 fraud item that auditors look for, is overstating revenue. You don't want to do that. You want to be conservative. And we'll see that used many times during this class over the coming weeks. And then finally, consistency. I can't tell you how many times I've had auditors when I'm not sure how to handle a particular situation on my books. I always would ask my external auditors for guidance on that. Like, they're the ones that are going to look at your books and examine them and give an opinion. You want to make sure you're following what their guidelines are. And every time I would ask them, they said, well, what did you do last time? Or do you have a similar situation? Because they want you to be consistent. And you want to be consistent in how you use your principles, that you're not jumping back and forth from one principle to another, like from LIFO to FIFO or standard cost to something, or from completed contract on revenue recognition to percentage of completion. You want to stay with the same principles. You want to stay with the same processes, the same decision-making term or period after period. You don't want to be jumping around. You want to be consistent to enhance the comparability of your statements. All right, so those are the 5 principles there. All these are important. First, I don't want to say the first 7 are important. They're a little more basic than what's going on there. Going concern might be one that I probably should put down at the bottom. But these 5 are the ones that really permeate your brain, that come to mind when you start thinking about, well, what kind of a journal entry do I need to make? Or what does that do to my financial statements? Do I need to record anything, or do I need to just put it into the notes to the financial statements, or do I do nothing? These are the 5 that you always have in the back of your mind. So I want you to be able to articulate that when you leave this class and be able to tell me what you have learned in your words, what you have learned about these 5 principles. And some of you, I'm sure, could write this currently, right now, but I would hold off for the time being and wait till we get to that particular section. All right, so that is pretty much the beginning or foundational lecture, a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be. If I can find here, there it is. Yep. So there's the foundation welcoming video. Each of the videos I'm going to have out there, they're kind of lengthy, so probably about an hour for the lecture, and my structure is pretty straightforward. Having worked in business, you have to make things straightforward and easy to understand, as easy as it is to understand for something that can be somewhat complex when we look at the right side of the balance sheet, which is what this course is about. It's about liabilities and equity, and then a lot of other stuff thrown in, including investments from assets and impairments of assets. But my lecture videos are about an hour, and then I will work all the homework problems on here and show you the solution, which takes usually about an hour as well. Some of them may be a little longer, some of them a little bit shorter, but they're long, but at the same time, it's less than sitting in class. So it allows you the ability to watch this anytime. They're asynchronous and to ensure you're learning. So welcome aboard, and I'll see you here shortly with Chapter 11.